Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Andrew Weitzman from Keymark Financial Services, Inc., Medallion Program Administrator. I'm joined here, of course, by Ron Gallagher from Hampton and Mario Cutenay.
Hey,
well
everybody.
from Hampton. Thank you again. As you know, we try to have one or two of these training sessions per year. Of course, we still have plenty of documents available at both www.stampesource.com as resources, as well as in the local web hub. There is a help section that has helpful PDFs and videos available to help. But we figure we'll have this session today and see if we can do a group walkthrough of everything on the guarantor side, the TA side, and then the administration housekeeping side as well. So as a reminder, there is the Universal Stamp app or the local web server as options. Most have the app, and I think that's mostly what we'll be focused on today, but they operate in much the same fashion. For those who already have access, we recommend logging in and pulling it up so you can follow along with us right now. Might be more instructive to go through the steps yourself. For those who do not have access, no fear, we will touch on that about how to configure it. And if you want to put questions here in that Q&A option right at the top of the screen there, we can take notes and contact you offline afterwards about solutions to help you implement it at your organization. So with that, let me turn it over to Hampton.
Good afternoon, everyone on the East Coast, and good morning to those on the West Coast. And again, as Andrew said, my name's Ron Gallagher. Most of us have spoken at some point in time. The one thing, we're going to use the Q&A button for any questions that you may have as we go along. One of the things we'd like to just mention right away is installation. So if there is anybody that has had difficulty or doesn't have the Universal Stamp app installed or the Universal Stamp web server installed, please just shoot us something in the Q&A and we'll, and give us a little background, what issues you're having, and we'll follow up afterwards and we'll take it offline. So just wanted to mention that. And then Mario is going to take over from here. And first he's going to explain the new version of Universal Stamp that some firms may or may not be interested in, called Local Web Server, or LWS. All right, Mario.
Cool. Well, thank you, Ron. Let me just clarify that Local Web Server is new, but it's not replacing the app. The app will still be available going forward. It's just another flavor. It's a technical detail. And let me just share a couple of lines about this product. What I'm going to show today is the Windows app that is installed on your Windows computer. That's for privacy reasons, for PII reasons. However, we also have a product now which is called the Local Web Server. And as the name suggests, it's a web server that would be installed in your local environment. And that basically combines best of both worlds. So you have a web-based app, but the documents still never travel to our systems, and therefore you don't have an issue with compliance, hopefully. That's basically what the Local Web Server does. For those who are technical on this call, just this 30-second statement. We will deliver a Docker registry. You can download the Docker container or the Docker image from the registry and fire it up in your environment. and then you have a local service that looks just like this Windows app that I'm about to show. All right, and with that, I'll stop my technical lingo and jump into showing you what we have. Just share the right screen. All right, at this point, you should be able to see the local web, the Universal Stamp app for Windows. Ron, can you confirm it's up there?
Yes, I can see
awesome.
it.
All right. So this, forget that browser in the background, but this is the Windows app. And when you launch it, you have these three buttons. Important for now is the login. Any user who wants to use this app will have to log in. So installing the app just by itself without having a user doesn't really make a lot of sense. I'm going to log in now as a guarantor user, and there's different ways that somebody can log into this app. Either what I'm going to do here is username and password. That's what you should have received from Hampton. Or with Microsoft, if your organization is using Microsoft Entra, then all you do is you hit login with Microsoft, and if the email address that we have on file is the same as the email address in Entra, you will be granted access. Okay. In our case, I'm going to use username and password. And because the guarantor side is a little more security, I should say, we should use a little more security here. We have turned on two-factor authentication. The way it works is when I logged in with username and password, it did send an email to my corporate email address. And there's a 6-digit PIN code in there. I'm just going to copy and paste it over. And I log in. In my case, my user has access to multiple accounts. You probably won't see what we just saw. That's why I jumped, why I hopped over it really quick. So anyways, now that we're logged in, we can see who I am, which organization I'm with, and when my last login before this one happened. But more important is, of course, what the features are that I have now. And one of them is stamping a document. Just a second here. So when I hit stamp a document, I can, on the other monitor, I can select any document on my local computer or on the network drive or anything. So for example, I'm going to use that stock bomb power here. And it opens up, I can view the document, I can flip through the pages, I can change the file name here. And when I'm sure this is the document that I want to stamp, I can do a couple of things. Stamping the document, so applying the stamp is always the last step in the process because that locks down the document. So let me show you two quick features before we do that. So one thing is I can add a transaction value. This is just a piece of information for the recipient that we will send that document to later. It's not checking which stamp I'm using or anything, and it's totally optional. So if you want to let your recipient, the guys who receive it know what transaction you had in mind, you put something in here, or you can leave it empty, then it's not going to do anything. Right? That's number one. Number two is we can add attachments. Certain documents might need supporting documentation, and we have two ways to do it. When I click attachments, the attachments panel opens. And now here I have two options. I can either add a document as attachment, which would store the document within the PDF. So it basically will be, I'll show you how that looks like, or what that looks like later, but it would be embedded in the PDF file as such. Or I can attach it as pages. What that would do is it would just grab the document that we attach and add the pages to the end of the main document. In our case, we want to do as attachment, and I'm going to select, I don't know, this certificate, which I'm sure doesn't make sense for this particular document, but I'm sure you get the concept. It doesn't have to be a PDF document necessarily if I do as attachment. I can also select image files. So for example, a driver license. And now these two files will really be stored within the document before I apply the stamp. And that's why I'm saying the stamp is always the last step, the final step in this process, because now the stamp is not only protecting the document itself, it will also protect the attachments that are stored within the document. So let me show you how that works. I hit add a stamp, and the app shows me which stamps I have with the user that I'm logged in. Mostly this will be one stamp per user. There's certain exceptions, like one user having maybe an A stamp or a Z stamp, so it depends on the bond level. But the typical scenario would be one user, one stamp. And that's what we see here. I have exactly this one stamp. When I click on it, the stamp image is displayed here on the document, and I can now drag it to where I want it to appear, for example, here. And when I'm happy with the location where I want the image to apply, I hit apply the stamp. And now, here is something important. At this point, the document is digitally signed. That's the technical term for it. So we are applying a digital signature. We're encrypting a checksum that is then stored with the document, yada, yada. It's a lot of technical stuff that's going on in the background, but the important thing is the document is now a temper evident document. So that means, of course, it can be changed. Every document or every file on a computer can be changed somehow, but it will be detectable. So when the recipient checks the document later, and somewhere in the middle, there was a bad actor that changed the document, for example, from, I don't know, 100 shares to 1,000, then they will see that the document was changed after the stamp was applied. All right, I'll show you what that file looks like. I can save this file that we just stamped somewhere to my computer again. So for example, right here, as you can see, I did this before, so the file already exists. Now, let me show you what that document looks in Acrobat standard PDF reader. Let's look it up. It's right here. So imagine you sent this document to the shareholder or somebody who is not a member of the in the USTEM program. They just open up the document, and what they see when they click on the stamp here is signature is valid and the document is certified. That means it hasn't been changed after the stamp was applied. This is a good document. Interesting, this is what I was referring to later. Acrobat Reader has this little paperclip here, and when I click on that, I have the two attachments that I added earlier. So for example, that certificate, when I click on it, it opens up. So that said, all you need is that PDF document to have the whole documentation available to whoever is interested in that. So this is for somebody, excuse me, who is not a member in the program. They can still look at it and verify that the document is good. However, internally, like if you are working with a recipient that is in the program, these recipients can choose to offer what we call an inbox. So basically, they set up a server on their side. It's an SFTP server for the technical people amongst us, and register that SFTP server with Universal Stamp. And with that, they become part of a directory that guarantors can use. So I can now choose to assign this document, and I get a list of participating firms that already chose to offer such an inbox. There could be multiple inboxes per organization. So for example, if I do our test account here, there are a couple of those inboxes. Keep in mind, there's a lot of them with different colors. And if I'm not sure which inbox to assign it to, all I do is I hover over the name and I see the description or the instructions that the recipient put there that tells me where they want documents of whatever kind to be put into. So I think I'm just going to use that general inbox, select it, and then I hit assign. So after confirming, it's now transferring the document, and that's the important part, directly from this computer to the recipient server. So it's bypassing any Hampton or Keymark systems. It's going direct to that recipient. So you are basically bypassing another third party that will give your compliance team a headache if it was going through us. All right. So now I got a confirmation the file was placed into that inbox, general inbox at the company USA Shareholder Services. And at this point, I am done as a guarantor. I can now save it to my desktop again if I wanted to, or store it in an archive. The only difference is store in archive means your administrator defines a particular spot on the network drive, for example, where all documents should go. And if you hit that, it's just going to save it there without you having to choose the location. And that's basically the guarantor part. Ron, do you want me to jump into transfer agent right away?
Andrew, any questions queued up there or for the,
Not that I'm seeing.
okay?
Okay.
So one, Mario, while you do that, like get the transfer agent thing queued up, I did want to just mention to everybody the difference when we explained the Windows app versus the local web server. The Windows app, if you don't know already, is something that's installed on every user's hardware, so their laptop, PC, what it may be. The local web server, or LWS, is one installation at the firm. So because it's a web-based, you would be going to the firm's, the address that your IT person would give you. Everybody would log in the same way Mario just showed, but it's not an install on everybody's hardware. And it's not OS specific. So this can run on Macs, it can run on Windows, whatever.
And Ron, while you're at it, I should add, we were always successful with 2 clients already to install that in a VDI. So we have
Right.
at least 2 clients who run it in a Citrix environment, or I don't know what the other one was. One was Citrix and something else, and that was successful as well. So if there are any IT people on the call, VDI is a go.
Right. It's typically larger firms like this because it's an easier deployment to a great number of users. And that's why it was created in the beginning. The other thing I just wanted to mention was year over year, transactions are up between 75 and 80%. So it's just the more all of you are using it, the more people are seeing it out there. So our goal is, you guys are using it, and thank you for that. And more people are noticing. Okay, Mario,
All right.
you can go to the.
So now that we have assigned this document to the inbox of one of our partner companies, they received an email, and it looks just like that. It says a new document was received. It says what the document name was and who sent it and which inbox it was into. And it says, please check that inbox for new documents. That's how I know. Now, the person who just received that would just log in now as a guarantor or a recipient user. Same here, they could use single sign-on as well. And remember, the recipient company that I assigned it to had multiple inboxes. That's exactly the inboxes that are shown here. And one of them was the general inbox. That's why I placed it earlier. So they would click on that. Now what you see is the contents of that inbox. And as I said before, it's an SFTP server. There can be multiple documents in there. The latest one, the newest that we sent, is just the one I did. And we now can open that without having to access an SFTP server or whatever ourselves. It's all in the app, so the user doesn't have to be concerned with technical details. Now the document opened, the stamp is right here. Other than in Acrobat Reader, we don't click on the stamp itself, but we click that verify button here. Just maybe before, you can, of course, at this point also save it locally, store it in the archive, same thing as on the guarantor's end. But most importantly, you can verify the document. That's what we're going to do. And we get this nice little report that shows us, most importantly, the document's integrity is good. So that means after the stamp was applied, it wasn't messed with. Nobody tampered with it. Nobody added something or changed the number. The slightest change in the document, say adding a dot somewhere, even white on white, would destroy the digital signature. And that green check mark here would be just a red bold X. So you would know this is not a good document, I'm rejecting it. What you see is also which stamps have been applied to the document. So we see on page 1, there has been this particular stamp by that guarantor. This is a valid stamp in the program. That's what this check mark means. So you don't have to go back to medallionstamps.com. And what you have, which you of course don't have in the physical world today, is the timestamp when exactly that stamp was applied. This call is a perfect example. We have East Coast, we have West Coast. So that's why we chose to have everything in UTC, because we also have customers in the Pacific that are US territories. So to avoid confusion, it's always in UTC. I'm going to jump over these really quick and get back to that in a moment. We also see the attachments here. You can save them and check them out. And we have an audit trail. Remember, I said in the very beginning, we can add a transaction value, which is optional. If we do add it, the audit trail will have that line saying the transaction value has been set. Then the document was stamped on page 1, and it was placed into the general inbox. And now, with that information and viewing the document, whatever, we can decide, do we either contact the sender and ask for more details if we wanted to. What that does is just it's copying the email address of the person who sent it to me into my clipboard, and I can use my favorite email program to just send it. That's basically it. And then, of course, I can either reject or accept it. If I reject it, I can add a reason. For our demo, I will accept this document, and what's going to happen is, of course, it tells me that the document has been accepted now. Since it's in the inbox, it's asking me, do we want to remove it from the inbox, because we're basically accepting it in already. So I want to remove it from the inbox. And it tells me that it was removed. And now what we see is we don't have a reject or accept button anymore. We can still save the document, which is a good idea because I just removed it from the inbox. But important is there's another line in the audit trail. So it tells me that the document was e-delivered to this test transfer agent. And on the other monitor that you just can't see, but this, the originator of that transaction, so whoever assigned the document to the recipient, also just got an email that says this document was e-delivered. So now everybody in the process is on the same page. The guarantor knows that the document was received on the other end. They accepted the stamp, and most likely they're going to process it. So that basically completes the process and the flow of this document. That's everything you need to know for the day-to-day business. Ron, before we go into administration, did you see if there are any questions or?
Just a couple, Mario, but I believe they were answered,
Okay.
anything pending, Andrew? I don't see any.
think so.
Yeah.
I can't put a screenshot of it, it seems, into the Q&A, but there was a good question about the signature and what if, I guess, the shareholder signature is not an original. The STA, Securities Transfer Association, which is the group of transfer agents, they have a whole guidelines document on their website, stai.org. And that does say that so long as the medallion is an original, it can be an electronic signature or photocopied signature from the shareholder. And this digital medallion, applied in the Ustamp app or local web server, that document sent electronically to the recipient is an original medallion.
Great. I think what Mario will briefly show you, and hopefully we have administrators on the call, but is the web hub, which is really just the administration portion of each firm's universal stamp account. So this is Mario will show you, but it's your digital stamp inventory, it's your user count, it's your account settings, and this is only available. It's the same username and password to get into app.universalstamp.com as it is to get into the app or the local web server. So there aren't multiple usernames, passwords, it's one. So if you're an administrator, you can log in here and go along with Mario if you'd like.
Let's do that. I'll log in as that guarantor user again. Oh yeah, we have turned on two-factor for this particular user.
I'll just
So-
add while we're waiting for that, then once we log in here, as the administrator, one of the things that makes UStamp different is that rather than emailing Keymark, your program consultant, please remove so-and-so as a user, that administration can now be done by you here instantaneously, and then it'll push through to us at Keymark, and we will code on our side the user and the associated medallion as destroyed.
Yeah, so once we are in this dashboard that shows the latest transactions that we did. This is the one I just did a couple of minutes ago. This box here shows we have 6 stamps, we have 4 active users. And the reason for that is, of course, that this is a demo account, so we have all sorts of scenarios in there. Typically, you would have just as many stamps as users. Now, if I click on here, I see an inventory of users. The red ones are the deactivated ones. I don't care for these right now, so I check that checkbox on the active users. And I can see now, this is a user with 1 active stamps, 0 deactivated stamps. Ron, of course, has 2 stamps, non-deactivated. And that user I'm using also has 1. So you saw before when I stamped the document, I only had 1 stamp available. If Ron would have done that with 2 active stamps, he would have seen 2, and he would have to choose one. All right. So if, say, Ron decides or wins the lottery, he doesn't want to work for us anymore for this UStamp client, we can deactivate the user. Anyways, that's not even necessary most of the times because we only allow corporate email addresses. So if we have two-factor turned on and you offboard somebody, all you need to do is make sure they don't have access to their email anymore. Because with that, they won't get the PIN code, and with that, they won't be able to log in. But to be on the safe side, they can be deactivated here. I'm not going to do that now, but if we did that, it will also say this, the user has 2 stamps assigned. Do you also want to deactivate those? And if you click yes, they're going to be deactivated as well. Or we can alternatively go in here and check the stamp and then deactivate the stamp as such without deactivating the user. That's also possible. We have log that shows, well, of course, we're doing a lot of demos, as you can see. So we have a log of when that stamp was used in the past. Quite a lot here. We have here. We have a number of documents that this account has stamped. So within the organization, that's just an overview so that the administrator has an idea about the usage. We have access to a help section again, and here or down here, we have the app for download. So if you don't want to install this from the Microsoft Store, you can also download it from here. Unless you're using the local web server, then there's no such thing anyways. But here's a version history and the download link for each version. So That's what this is about. You also can, and we talked about this before briefly, go into the account settings. And then this is the archive path. Remember, there was a button that says store it in archive. This is a predefined folder. So for example, I can put this in, and whenever any of the users hits store to archive, it's going to go to this particular folder. D is most likely not a network drive, so not a good idea. A new feature that we just built about 2 weeks ago is autosave to archive. So we've been asked by clients, is there a way that whenever a document is stamped, it automatically goes into that archive? Yep, now it is. That's what this button is about. And then really quick, you might remember when we accepted the document on the recipient side, the person who sent the document to us was notified that it was accepted now. We can override that email by putting in any email address. So typically that would be maybe a shared mailbox or something, or a distribution list, so that multiple people know this document was accepted. If you don't want to use single sign-on, there's a password policy where we can define we need this and that many letters and so on. And for more sophisticated, probably larger organizations, we also offer an API, and that's the authentication for that API. I'm not going to go into details here. It's really for very technical people. Ron, what did I forget?
I think you touched on everything, Mario. I think I'll mention to everybody who's a user on this call. We always say this is a bit of a chicken and egg scenario where one financial firm wants to see other financial firms using it. So that's one reason why we thank you today, because you are using the product and that's causing other people to use the product. If there is a firm that you would like to be on the program, or that you do a lot of business back and forth that might involve a medallion signature guarantee, drop it in the Q&A and Andrew and I will reach out to them directly. But each month there's broader industry adoption, and some of it has to do with the technology releases, and some of it has to do with just seeing more firms on the program. Andrew, were there any questions pending, or?
I don't see questions pending. I'm going to send some follow-up emails to folks based on the notes there.
Okay.
I think, Ron, maybe worth touching upon for those who haven't installed the app yet, for example, the ports and the conversation about which ports need to be open and how it really is like a 10-minute fix, so long as you're able to be in touch with your IT and get that done. It's very easy to implement once that is done.
Yeah, we've done it on the phone with people, and that port needs to be opened, and they open it, and okay, yes, we have access now. So but every firm is different, so there isn't a single answer for everybody, but we're here to help. There is a ticketing system, support at hamptontech.net. We'll put that in the, so if there is an issue, you can reach out to us that way. You can reach out to Andrew or myself directly. Just let us know. We're here to help. Andrew, did you want to mention, no, where?
I'm sorry, I may have missed it, Ron, while I was replying to people. Did we show about configuring store and archive?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, not configuring, but Mario showed auto store and You did show it, Mario, yes.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, but that's in the account settings and password policies, whatever this folder is locally at your firm. If you need a user guide to help with this, we're happy to send it. But it's also at app.universalstamp/help. So there's supporting documentation, there's videos. Seems these days people love videos.
Then I think the only other thing I would just add, I guess anecdotally speaking, working with all the firms in UStamp all these years, the process that seems to be most effective is when a guarantor has added the digital medallion to a document, so therefore it's locked down, being able to, one, then hit that store and archive button, or at least save it, to your desktop or something, so you have it for your records. But pre-configuring that store and archive is really nice feature where, again, once you hit store and archive, it's automatically routed to a predetermined location for your record keeping purposes. And then, as I say, if the recipient is also a direct participant in UStamp, hitting that assign button, finding that recipient, and assigning it to their inbox, that has been similarly kind of pre-programmed. From the recipient side, the feedback has been like that's the way they like to receive the documents. If they have set up an inbox or multiple inboxes in that assign feature, the transfer agents, the firms receiving documents that already have medallions on them like to receive them that way because, again, they have total control over where that document is landing on their side. So that, isn't necessarily how everyone has to do it, but from what we've heard, I think the overwhelming feedback has been if both the sender and receiver are participating in UStamp, that seems to be the most direct method for moving something from one side to another.
Great. I don't see any questions. So with that said, we'll give everybody back part of their day. And thank you for joining us. And thank you for your continued support of Universal Stamp and your feedback. Your feedback has generated the new products we talked about today and many of the advantages. So keep them coming.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Have a great day. Bye-bye.